Ted, what are you watching for from OU's defense against Kansas's offense?
A lot of stuff. I really like this offense from Kansas. I love their run game. They're going to give you a little bit of everything in the run game. You're going to get option, and it's all not the same. You're going to get zone, and it's all not the same. You're going to get gap scheme stuff. You're going to get exotics. You're going to get a bunch. This is, last week I was calling it responsibility football against UCF. Well, that was a good gear up for Kansas because it's going to be the same thing. I like a lot of what they do. So I'll start with the option stuff. Actually, let me start with just kind of some like overall things. And a lot of this we heard from Coach Venables on Rudy's. Kansas they will line up in all kinds of different formations. Coach Venables said that this week they've had, by far, Kansas has more formations than anyone else that they've played. It's not even close. Kind of the way they operate, and it's kind of hard to see on film because you just, you get the finished formation usually, but they start off in the sugar huddle. A lot of teams give you the final presentation. They'll signal in, they'll count the box, they'll make their final adjustments and they'll snap the football. But the time issue that most teams put you under is getting lined up early. You have to get out there early to their finished formation, and then they make adjustments. Kansas is different. They start off in a little huddle, sugar huddle, close to the football, and they stay in it until 10 seconds or so left on the play clock, turn around, break the formation, and run to the line and snap the football. They'll do that a lot. They'll do just interesting formations, end over quads. They'll do a formation where you've got guard, center, guard in the middle. Then you've got like maybe a 2-yard flex, and then you've got a tackle. So it's a weird formation. There's shifts, all kinds of exotic shifts, all kinds of exotic personnel. You'll get 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel with 3 tight ends out there. It's a bunch, 2 backs. So there's a lot of stuff.
2 really good backs.
2 really good backs. Yep. 2 really good backs with Neal and Highshaw. And they'll do all of these concepts out of all of those different personnel packages. One of the things that you're going to see is option. They'll run speed option, which is quarterback pressing the edge. They leave the end guy on the line of scrimmage go. Quarterback puts that guy to a decision. And then he'll either pitch it if he commits, or if he plays loose and plays the pitch, quarterback will keep it. They'll run lead option, which is totally different. Lead option, they'll leave the edge guy go. They'll have a lead blocker in the backfield that goes past the edge guy and is blocking the support player. And they'll give you this out of a bunch of different formations. Here's the thing that I think is interesting. Either they tell Bean to just press it as long as you can and pitch it, or he's not good at running option. There's most times that he runs it, a lot of times that he runs it, I see that it's almost like he's going to push it and then he's pitching it, regardless of what the look is. So it's interesting there. I think there's if he was more aggressive in that, I think there's way more yards that they get out of the option, but it may be what they're teaching him because he is their backup quarterback. You'll get a lot of pin pull with them, especially with end over, where they've got essentially 4 guys on one side, quads, whatever you want to call it, end over, and they will pull the play side guard and tackle. They'll pin down with the tight end, and they'll even pull the backside guard on it. So it's almost like the old student body right or left. You'll see, hopefully they're wanting to get a kick out and then lead the 2 guards up inside, and they've done it well. They had a couple of really nice plays against Oklahoma State with it. That's something that we've been haven't been great with on the perimeter. UCF got us on a couple of reverses. Tulsa, if you remember, they hit us on the crack toss, kind of a similar type of situation. So we've got to be good at that. There's a bunch, like, you'll get everything. They'll run wham. They'll line the H back up tight, and he'll, I don't know how you explain it. It's almost like a quick little trap with the H back on a down lineman, and the offensive line sifts up right now to the second level. You'll get some of that. You have to have your eyes peeled as I transition to the passing game. Why pop pass on some of their run concepts? They'll like arc block, where he's either on the ball or off, and they'll release out, and it's almost like an influence on the support safety. As he arcs out wide, the support safety is this a pass, or is he releasing wide to block? And if you get the eyes in the wrong spot, it's like an RPO on the Y instead of out on the wide receivers. He'll give it if the safety on the arc stays high and over the top, and he'll pull it if the safety attacks and the arc is open, and they'll hit the pop pass. They hit Oklahoma State on at least 2 long touchdowns on pop passes. Now, one of them is another thing that I was going to get to, is they will hide the tight end at tackle as an eligible. They'll have like trips to the outside with the tackle bumped out, where he looks like he's on the ball and the tight end is actually there and he's uncovered. And, they'll mess with that a bunch of different ways, but if you're not prepared for it, there he goes. He looks like he's playing the tackle position. He runs a seam right down the middle of the field. They hit Oklahoma State on one out of that formation where he was hiding at tackle. So you've always got to be keyed in formationally.
Andy Cardinale, their offensive coordinator, guess what position he coaches?
H-backs, tight ends.
They have a lot of things dialed up for that group. And Mason Fairchild's a really good player.
Yeah.
Right. He's a good player. But yeah, they have a lot of their most creative stuff dialed up for the guys in his room. So I don't think that's any surprise at all. So,
and it fits well with what they do.
It absolutely does. I think this is one of the most difficult offenses to defend in all of college football. With everything they do, I'm not entirely sure how they carry everything that they carry.
I know.
Just has to be an incredible amount of walkthrough time with this group. Right. Yep. And they got to have some guys that have high football IQs. I've seen NFL teams with less than what they've got.
Yeah, it's wild. And, when you look at the passing game is not nearly as intricate as the run stuff is, but, you're going to get some good stuff. Like a lot of, they love to create bunch routes, either motion to like create conflict with 2 or motion to create conflict with 3, especially whenever you're running a man-to-man stuff, and try and either have you zone it off or try and get some picks. A lot of bunch stuff. You'll get the downfield stuff is mainly digs and kind of some go balls or like deep over routes. You don't get a whole lot of short stuff. Most of their short stuff is the stuff that's kind of created out of bunch, and it feels like those plays are kind of designed for almost like they're designing somebody open. So it's not a lot of wait and read it out. It's kind of like we're trying to generate this pick, and they get it, and then they throw the ball right away. So Bean doesn't sit back and read a lot of things out. They'll attack you on some digs and stuff like that. But a lot of it is like play action, quick design stuff off of some of their runs, and the ball's designed to come out right away. they one more interesting thing is they'll do some shovel pass stuff to wide receivers. Anytime you have a wide receiver that's near the core and what defenses a lot of times call it nasty whenever you've got the X wide receivers is tight to the core. You'll see that a lot on boot whenever he's running an over route or if they're going to motion to create a bunch. Kansas will also have and he's on an on the ball wide receiver outside of the tackle a couple of yards, and on the snap he'll come into the backfield and they'll run a shovel pass to him. So it's super creative. You don't see that from a lot of people. You'll see shovel pass, but a lot of times it's a back steps up like he's going to block. They turn around and hit the shovel. But this is almost like Bean's going to sprint out. It's not a very spirit. It's like a half speed sprint out, and then he'll shovel it back inside to a wideout. So there's a lot of stuff. Personnel wise, I think Highshaw and Neal are both really good backs, physical, breakaway speed, good vision. As much run stuff and option stuff as they do, you would think that, and as athletic as Bean is, that there's a lot of quarterback run stuff, but it's really not a lot of called quarterback run. They'll run the option stuff, but you don't see they'll sprinkle it in, but it's not as heavy as I thought it was going to be. And then, they've got multiple wide receivers you got to look out for. Arnold, number 2, is a really good player. He's kind of their go-to. And then Wilson is maybe their best deep ball threat. So you got to look out for those guys. And again, a lot of it is kind of one-off. Here's where we're going with the football, and they're trying to design those guys open.
Yeah, I'd say Luke Grimm is, I don't know, the OU equivalent, right? Like kind of their Drake Stoops guy.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Third down situations, red zone guy. They tend to find him in some of those situations. But Ted, I think you've done a good job of scaring OU fans about Kansas's offense.
Well, that's good. I think they're. What
do you think? What does OU's defense need to do really, really well to make sure that Kansas's offense doesn't really get going?
Stop the run, and I think if we can get lined up properly, communicate well, and have our eyes in the right place, I think we'll be fine. They're going to generate some yards in the run game. They have so much stuff. It's just going to happen. But a lot of times it almost feels like they're running the football and they're doing all of this stuff at the line of scrimmage. And yeah, they're trying to get yards, but really what they're trying to get you to do is almost settle in. And then they hit you with a trick 'em dick 'em play, and they hide the Y and they try and pop one on you over the top. If you can eliminate all of the gotcha stuff by having good eyes, I think we can do a really good job. Now, I wanted to ask you about the offensive line because I think we can control the line of scrimmage, but this group, I don't know how physical they are. I don't know, if individually you have any great pass pro guys, and this is a great quality and we don't see it often. I feel like they are always blocking the right guys.
Correct.
And that is 90% of the battle. When they run zone, it looks like their eyes are in the right place. They're both comboing up to the right guys. They're not overwhelming athletically, but high football IQ, as you mentioned earlier, it seems like.
No, I'm with you. I think Dominic Pooney, the left tackle, has done a really good job. 67. I think Nowitzki, the center, has done a really nice job. And that's the thing. Offensive line, if you are going to the right guys, right, and you're confident in where you're going, usually you can play fast. And usually when you play fast, you're playing pretty damn physical. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. This is the most talented offensive line they've had in, I don't know, a long time.
Yeah. And he
it's a
started
good
playing a lot of
group.
these guys young, didn't he? I mean, when they were like freshmen and they've kind of grown up together.
Yeah, it's a good group. They play really well together, and it's clear to me they have a very good understanding of what they're trying to accomplish offensively. They they're really solid. So it's going to be a good challenge, but I think with what we've seen from Oklahoma's defensive front, I don't expect Kansas's group to be knocking the Sooners off the ball or anything like that. That would surprise me. But what Kansas does have is all of this variety, right? Does OU's defensive front, do they get caught up in all the thinking and trying to analyze everything that Kansas is trying to attack them with offensively? Or do they have a clear understanding of what's coming? Are they able to communicate quickly? And are they able to come off the football and play fast, right? And not be doing too much thinking, right? There's nothing that slows down a defensive line like indecisiveness and confusion, uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think the key is having a clear picture, a clear understanding of what Kansas is trying to do, getting lined up, communicating everything quickly, and then just going out and playing, man.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Just eliminate the big chunk plays with the pop passes and hiding the Y, and if you can eliminate that, I think we should be able to have a really solid game against them. I expect them to hit on a couple of plays, but I think we can really put up a good number defensively. I do.
Tackling, got to
Yeah.
continue to be good. Highshaw and Neal, those guys are legit.
Yep.
Both really good backs. You got anything else? OU's defense versus that Kansas offense.
I think that covers it.
All right, let's talk about OU's offense versus Kansas's defense. First of all, the structure 4-2-5 defense, mostly even front, but can jump into some odd spacing stuff if they need to. This is what I'll say. They are better than they've been on defense, but they're still bad. If OU doesn't score a bunch of points, I'm going to be disappointed. I'll tell you right now, if OU doesn't score a bunch of points against this defense, I'm going to come on here on Sunday and I may have a little mini freak out. Because it is, they're better. They're just not, from a personnel standpoint, they're still just not where they need to be. They're not anywhere close to where Leipold wants them to be. But let's start with the run game. I do not believe the Sooners need to get overly complicated with the run game. Honestly, I think they can run split zone, zone insert, and counter and be just fine. That's basically what UCF did against them. And don't let the final score fool you. UCF ran the ball really well against Kansas. Really well. Their defensive line is, I'm going to say this a lot, they're better, but not where they want to be. And you look at that group, I don't think there's a ton of talent. They play hard. They're physical. I do think they use their hands well, right? Yeah, I think they do a really nice job of head and hands extending and then trying to shed blocks, especially Devin Phillips, number 40. He's the guy that stands out the most to me on tape. There's some impressive clips of him removing some offensive linemen from his person. But this is a defensive line that OU's offensive line should be able to control. Right now, I know that Caden Green's a freshman at left guard. I know, hey, what's right guard going to look like between Schaefer and Bird? I think it should be Bird, but I still think the talent along OU's offensive line, it's just much greater than what Kansas has along their defensive front, Ted.
Yeah. And usually whenever you have a team kind of like in Kansas's situation, there may be a player or two on the defensive line that are really solid players, but if you get into long drives where they've got to start subbing some of those guys out and you get down the roster a little bit, that's whenever you should really be able to take advantage of the mismatch on the line of scrimmage.
Completely agree. Completely agree. So sticking with the run game, I think OU can have success running the ball. And one of the big reasons why is that defensive front. But I think their inside linebacker play is bad. They play a lot of different guys. And for the most part, every guy they put in those situations just kind of looks a little lost out there to me when it comes to the run fits, when it comes to seeing blocking schemes, when it comes to playing downhill. And I know some guys are coached more, play lateral now with all the RPO stuff that's prevalent in college football. But Ted, it doesn't seem like they see it to me. Like the counter stuff, it doesn't seem like they see the pullers. The split zone stuff, it doesn't seem like they see the split action. I don't know. They just look a little like they're kind of just floating out there. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it other than it doesn't look like they are completely dialed in to what they're seeing from a blocking scheme perspective.
Yeah. And, it looks like they kind of rotate several different groups in there, and it's probably because they're hunting for someone, and it probably makes their situation worse because no one really stands out. And I don't know that anyone is getting like the starter treatment and getting like all of the reps in practice. It feels like there's way too big of a mix. Like you don't see that much rotation typically at that spot. Most places their inside backers play the entire game. So I don't know. I agree with you though, and that's something that we have to be able to take advantage of. If guys are floating out there, we've got to be able to run the football. And if you play a team where the inside backers are aggressive and attacking downhill, well, you've got to be able to counter that too. But with a group that's soft and indecisive, you got to be able to run the football. It's just if we're going to be a championship level team, we have to be able to run the football in Kansas and run it really well.
And I think they're more than capable of doing that. Now, people that listen to this podcast know that I'm very passionate when it comes to zone running schemes. I do think with what we've seen from OU's offensive line and what I've seen from Kansas's defense, I think gap schemes are good in this one. Now, the Sooners have been more of a zone team here lately, but if you can get to some counter, some one-back power, right, the one-back tackle power that we've seen them run with Guyton at some points in time this season, once again, I think those inside backers do a really poor job of recognizing and tracking pullers and working through all the trash. And I'll get a little in the weeds here. When teams have run counter against UCF, so counter, GY counter is what I call it. I guess it could be an H. You could label the guy as an H back, but we run it with Stogner, so I call it GY counter. Right, the guard is the first puller. Right, he pulls and goes and kicks out the end man on the line of scrimmage, and then Austin Stogner is the second wrapping puller, and he inserts. Right, Kansas wrong arms counter on the first puller, meaning when that guard comes to kick him out, they wrong arm it and try to get inside that puller and have everything bounce outside, right? So that the play will hit wider to some unblocked guys out there in space. Stogner, he's got to be good knowing that that's coming. He's got to get around that and not get knocked off by the wrong arm. And I like it because it will get the running backs out in space a little bit. Right? We have not seen, other than some glimpses from Sawchuk and some stuff we've seen from Tawee Walker, we haven't seen this running back room have a great feel for operating in tight spaces, right, in between the tackles. I think if they can get out and feel a little space out there, set Stogner's block up a little bit, that they can have some success on that counter play. And they had a lot of success on it a year ago. Now, that was with Eric Gray. He's really good at making people miss. We have not seen a running back that has been capable of doing that this season. But I think I think the counter concept is good with the way that Kansas defends it, with the way that their inside backers struggle. I'll be surprised if Lebby doesn't dial that concept up a little more than we've seen them using it lately.
Yeah, I'd like that a lot. Yeah, and it does feel like maybe getting our backs out in space, which it's not easy to do, right? You've got to be able to block it up and have the right concept to get those guys kind of out there in that alley a little bit where they can maybe make a guy miss. It becomes way more obvious. You either get out there and you make guys miss, or you get straight up tackled one-on-one and it looks way worse than it does on the inside. So hopefully if we can pull that off, and I agree with you, it would be good. Hopefully we can maybe get those guys some confidence and win a lot of those battles.
I'm with you. All right, some past game thoughts. Looking at their defense, I always look at the defense and go, okay, what do they do well? Right? What are their strengths? And I think corner's the strength of the football team. And that kind of led me down a rabbit hole of thinking, because Kobe Bryant, number 2 for them, he's a really good player. I think Melo Dotson, number 3 for them. I think he's improved a lot. I think he's a solid corner. And something that we saw from UCF, and it's something we saw a lot late last season, Ted, was teams starting to get really aggressive in coverage against this team. And I wonder, with the strength being at corner for Kansas, could we see them commit a little more to the run and just say, hey, guys, we're going to have to play some man coverage. Go out there and do your thing. And you go back and you look at the UCF game, other than Nick Anderson, like no one was creating a ton of space, right? Now, Drake Stoops did some really nice things. But I just wonder if we could see this defense go, you know what? We're not going to let them just gash us with the run game. We're going to commit more to the box, and we're going to see if these guys in our secondary can hold up. I mean, it would not shock me if Kansas challenged OU with some more man coverage concepts. And if they do that, like Farouk, you got to win. Nick Anderson, you got to win. And I don't know if that's what they're going to end up doing. Maybe they go the complete opposite and they play a lot of deep zone and say, hey, we'll try to play red zone roulette, right? We'll try to hold up, force some field goals. Maybe you'll miss a couple more. But I just don't think they can sit back in a bunch of zone and stop OU's run game with what they've got in their front 6, front 7.
Yeah, maybe try and force in a chaotic box, force Dylan Gabriel to throw into man-to-man coverage. And, you know, those guys, it doesn't take much to be open against man-to-man, but as a quarterback, whenever there's a lot of chaos around you in the pocket and, you know they're coming, your clock gets sped up a little bit. It looks like those guys are covered, and it takes a little longer sometimes for those things to pop open, and it puts the pressure back on the quarterback, to say, yeah, they may be open, there may be a window there, but can you get it to them under duress? So yeah, it's a mismatch, our offense against their defense. They have to find something to kind of, say this is where we're going to make our fight. And whether it's blitzing, go man-to-man coverage, trying to go about that way, or say we're going to make you snap it a bunch of times on us and play zone. Like, they're going to have to pick. And I think because of the way their offense is, I do feel like I would guess it's the aggressive nature, because they don't have the players to really tackle in open space and inside backers to adjust and be big factors in the zone scheme. So I think that's a good assessment. That's probably what I would do if I was Kansas.
Yeah. Now you look at that secondary. I do think they're willing to give up some short stuff on the outside. That includes the RPO stuff, right? Just catching the snap, throwing it out there on those quicks. They give up shorter out routes, shorter comebacks, kind of just curls. It seems like they're willing to give up those types of throws. And I could see OU taking a ton of those, right? Making those corners tackle, right?
Yep.
Corners are notorious for not exactly loving that part of the game. So make those guys tackle a little bit. And then one guy that I think can have a big game is Drake Stoops in the slot. Right now, continues to make big plays for this football team, but I'm really not impressed with anybody they put out there at that nickel spot. They've got two bigger body guys in number 15, Craig Young, and number 10, Jason Gilliam, that are both around 225 pounds. They can't cover Drake. They'll bring a corner, number 18, Callan Gervin, to play that spot in passing situations. I'm not overly impressed with his speed. I think Drake can route him up. And I also think Drake does a nice job of finding space in the middle of the field, right? When your inside backers aren't completely dialed in to where they are fitting in some of those underneath zone coverage concepts. And just like they're lost in the run game, Ted, Kansas's inside backers do not seem to know where they fit in the coverage schemes. There's sometimes they'll run into each other. They'll be working opposite ways and they run into each other and they look at each other like, why are you here? Why are you here? It's just kind of a mess there in the middle of the defense for Kansas.
Got to be able to take advantage of that. We should eat that up. If we've got indecisiveness at the inside backer spot in the pass game and in the run game, we should be able to chew these guys up.
It is one of the games where I really wish OU had a dynamic tight end, because I would love that matchup between a dynamic big guy and their bigger nickels. Maybe it's Cade McIntyre. I don't know how the hand is doing, but if he wants to go out there and run by some guys and catch some passes, I would love to watch it.
This would be the week for it.
Now, looking at their defensive line when it comes to pass rush, last couple of years, they've had a good edge rusher, right? Lonnie Phelps a year ago, Kyron Johnson a few years ago. Austin Booker, number 9, is their best pass rusher. He's just kind of a confusing player. And it sounds like he's been banged up a little bit, but I'd say he's got an unorthodox approach to pass rushing. Now, this guy, he is 6'6". He's got long arms. When he turns it on, you're like, dang. Okay, but it seems like his main goal is to just not get touched by an offensive tackle. It's like it's interesting. He tries to lull tackles to sleep and then make a move and not get touched, whether it's inside or outside. And he's had some success with it, but the Sooners need to do a nice job on him. He's definitely their best pass rusher. But overall, OU's pass protection has been really good this year, and I expect it to be really good in this game. Kansas is not a team that dials up a ton of elaborate pressure. They keep it pretty simple with their pressure concepts. And this is one thing I can almost guarantee, and it's something that Kansas has done this year. Double mug linebackers. 2 inside backers standing up in the A-gaps. Because, Ted, what did OU give up a sack on against UCF?
That exact look, the little pick there on the guard.
So Kansas is going to see, it may be the first 3rd and long of the game. Kansas is going to see if Caden Green and Savion Byrd and Andrew Raymond, whatever running backs on the field, can figure it out.
Yeah.
And they better figure it out or else I may lose it.
Well, as Coach Venables said Monday night, if I asked him if we are going to see the sprint draw from Kansas because UCF hit us on us, he said, well, that's a professional courtesy. I would expect them to see if we've got it figured out, and in kind of the same situation here. Yeah, I'm guessing they've covered that. Hopefully they can pick it up next time they see it.
That's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I think that Kansas is a dangerous team. I think on a given day, if you don't have your antennas up for all the stuff that they're going to throw at you, and you come in flat, low energy, maybe a little bit kind of like we did against UCF, this team can beat you. They can beat you. We can lose to Kansas. So, I mean, you better be ready to play. If we show up and play our game, if we play Oklahoma football, I think we can blow them off the field. It's just whether or not we show up and play a complete game. It's, we're getting close to November. We're 7-0. It's about time to start hitting our stride and playing some complete football games. We've played a lot of really good football up to this point, but every game we come out and we say, well, it was good, but there's always one aspect that we're looking at saying, if we clean this up, we're going to be really tough to beat. And that's gone on for a while now. It's time to start dialing it in. All right. We're about to get into the real stretch run here where we need to be hitting our peak.
I'm with you. And everything's on the table for this team. I'm going to keep saying it, right? With the way you look around the country, it doesn't feel like there's that dominant team, right? And then we'll get to the Michigan situation. I don't even know what to make of that, but it feels like there's an opportunity ahead of this football team, and we'll see if they can make the most of it. All right.